Good morning and welcome. Beautiful Monday morning, 15th of May 2017. My guest in the panel today, Mheshimiwa Yusuf Hassan, Member of Parliament for Kamukunji, Mheshimiwa Peter Opondo Kaluma, Member of Parliament, Homa Bay Town Constituency, Jonathan Mweke, Deputy Governor, Nairobi County, and of course, Mheshimiwa Jogu Barua, Member of Parliament for Gishugu. Good morning, gentlemen, and welcome to this wonderful day. Among the issues in the dailies today, the Standard, the Nation, and Taifa Leo have the same headline. They're all talking about NASA ultimatum to the IEBC about vote counting at the polling station and not anywhere else. This is an issue that is currently before court, and the NASA issued an ultimatum to the electoral body, telling them that as stipulated in the Constitution, vote counting should be done in the polling stations and nowhere else. The Standard, apart from that, the story about the real identity of maize importers. Merali linked firm that imported controversial fertilizer last year is among those shipping 3 billion shillings worth of maize. That is a story that is captured in details on page 4 of the Standard. Page 3 of the Standard, an interesting story. Kenyan soldiers now claim divine immunity against HIV/AIDS. Some Kenya Defense Forces soldiers have claimed to be immune to HIV. This is according to a study conducted at the Forces Memorial in Nairobi. And another small but insignificant number of soldiers who participated in the study claim that they enjoy divine protection against HIV/AIDS rather. More of that on page 3, where the feature is captured. Of course, the story about maize, which we'll be covering more today, page 4 of the Standard. Another interesting story is the rise of independent candidates and what it means to Kenya's politics. And this will form part of our discussion this morning. President Uhuru Kenyatta has been on a tour in China after United Kingdom, and he's coming back with goodies. Uhuru hopes for more deals from China partners as Kenya seeks a crucial economic conference next year. All this is on page 7 of the Standard. Apart from that, of course, the legislators have now been urged to make sure that they clear all their loans before they leave Parliament. This is according to the Parliamentary Loan Scheme Fund. They owe Parliament about 213 million shillings. This is members of Parliament and other House staff. The Daily Nation opens with a story about NASA warning to IEBC over poll tallying. Of course, the other interesting story there is why Kavogo quit Uhuru's Jubilee Party, and team now asks members of Parliament to reduce gambling taxes. Remember, 50% tax was proposed by Treasury on gambling, and now the House economic experts say that is a bit punitive and unnecessary, and is urging members of Parliament to review that. More on that on page 11 of the Daily Nation. Page 2 has stories about goodies from China. Chinese unleash goodies to the world as top leaders troop in. Among them is Huawei's gift to the police department on modern security equipment, as well as other stories. But of interest in relation to the cost of life is the commitment by Teacher Service Commission to 305,000 teachers across the country that indeed you will get your pay rise in July as earlier promised. The Taifa Leo, just like the other two dailies, as I told you, onyo la NASA kwa Chebukati. Viongozi wa muungano wa NASA jana walionya tume huru ya uchaguzi na mipaka kwamba wataitisha maandamano ya kususia uchaguzi mkuu ujao iwapo haitaondoa rufaa ya kupinga uamuzi wa mahakama kwamba matokeo ya rais yanafaa kutangazwa katika maeneo bunge. Lakini jambo la kusikitisha katika Taifa Leo ni kisa kilichotokea kule Nyeri, ambako mwanamume wa miaka 24 katika kaunti ya Nyeri jana alimkatakata na kumjeruhi mkewe pamoja na mtoto wake wa miaka 2 baada ya kugombana kuhusu bei ya unga wa mahindi. The Star, totally different from everybody else. NASA plans to pick cabinet team from members of Parliament. Having CSS appointed from Parliament would mean that the current system of government changes from purely presidential to hybrid. This is captured more on page 4 and 5 of the Star newspapers. But gentlemen, cost of life is our biggest story this morning. We're importing maize. I don't know whether it's from Mexico or wherever, but we are importing maize. That's the most important thing. And this is happening at a time when the price of fuel has also gone up as far as Energy Regulatory Commission is concerned. Yesterday they announced the rise in petrol and kerosene prices, although diesel went down. And the sad story from Nyeri, Jogu Barua, will start with you on this. This happens even as teachers get the promise that you will get your money, don't worry. So as life is expensive for the rest of Kenyans, looks like teachers will be smiling to the banks. Somebody cuts his wife because of bei ya unga wa ugali. Is this how serious this situation has gotten?
Thank you for this opportunity, and it's a tough question. But when you see somebody killing, like you have seen in the past, for 20 shillings, what it means, that 20 shillings is of material value to that person. So what it means in Nyeri, when somebody is cutting the island almost to death because of cost of living, it means that that is the issue of concern to him or her, and it should be taken seriously. In life, the most important things are the basic needs. Like I heard somebody saying yesterday that the other worst thing from hunger is just death. So when people are hungry, it's an issue of concern. But the issue of using that excuse to chop somebody else, it means there's a lot of incubated hunger, which was actually released. It just triggered by that situation. So I think Kenyans, we should take the issue of hunger, the cost of living, very seriously. But what I think, in my own opinion, it is not good for us, it's not fair for us to start blaming each other for the hunger. It's not time for Jubilee to start blaming NASA. It's not time for NASA to start blaming Jubilee for the cost of living. Because right now it has become almost like, it's actually the main campaign agenda of this month.
And it keeps flip-flopping around. Kaluma.
But I'm saying, before I finish, I want to say that we were all in Kenya, both Jubilee and NASA, the cost of living was going up. So why this thing is coming at this particular time is actually, to me, is suspect.
The Deputy President says you people are crying over the price of unga. Now that the government has imported maize, you're again at it and saying, how come it came so quickly? Did you want Kenyans to die?
I was here last week, Charles. It's just that we never show the clips. We were here with Brother Yusuf, and I told you I was nursing no doubt in my mind that while Parliament was being pushed to secure a supplementary budget for a one-off payment, that while Parliament was being told to, check how the cost of living can go down, I had no doubt in my mind that knowing how this government is structured, there was something in our territorial waters already. I mean, when we secure a supplementary budget and when we secure a duty-free importation of these basic commodities, and within less than 3 days you are told they have come from Mexico or wherever they have docked there.
Isn't that prudent planning?
It confirms to you that somebody is actually pirating on those facilities of duty-free and of course a one-off payment by public money through supplementary budget. It is manipulation of the market, so that it lends credence to the thinking that what we are dealing with is an artificial shortage, by heartless people who are not seeing this is a matter concerning life and dignity of a people. People want to scheme even on the basic needs of the people. I mean, Njogu is looking at it lightly. But when a person reaches a level where he's hacking another, all dignity is lost. We used to say when we were in school that a hungry man is an angry man. And when a person is helpless, of course, those are the situations you'll get those things. Charles, these issues of food, I don't know how we can have a ministry in charge of agriculture. We could have all these, treasury and relevant ministries. Then you have a problem. When you read a basic, moral religious text like the Bible, you are told how Joseph was made the prime minister in Egypt to secure food shortage. And Charles, what you are not being told in all this olabaloo about, lack of maize, lack of milk, lack of, sugar. Are two fundamental things. One, what happened to our strategic grain reserve? I mean, any nation has it in the manner Joseph, processed one for Egypt. What happened to it? And is it still there? Who are in charge of it? But the most fundamental question is who are these who are benefiting from, shortage of basic commodities among Kenyans?
Good question. I'll move over to Mheshimiwa Yusuf Hassan. Mheshimiwa, looks like the unga prices are becoming pertinent issue of our campaigns. But worst of all is a situation where, like in Nyeri, mshukiwa aliyetambuliwa kama Wilson Kiguru anadaiwa kumshambulia mkewe kwa kutumia fedha nyingi sana kununua unga.
Let me just first of all say that we are facing dire economic problems around the world on a global scale. We've had economic problems in every continent this year. We have had drought in the whole of the Horn of Africa. There are millions of people in the Horn of Africa, including Kenya, Southern Sudan, Southern Africa, that are facing food shortages, food insecurity. And the international community has been calling for solutions to that. So there are issues that are beyond political speculation and political propaganda, such as climate change, that affects our community. And Kenya is not an exception. Because of that, this year we have not had the optimum production in terms of food that we expected. And this is fact number one. It has nothing to do with Jubilee. It has nothing to do with ODM. It is a reality that we face as a country. And that's why I think there's a danger when you take a sensational item like the one on Taifa Leo, which is to sell newspapers. This guy who has done that is purely a criminal who has committed a serious crime against...
Regardless of the reason
absolutely,
why.
Absolutely. You do not chop your wife and child because if he was concerned about their faith and their health, he would have preserved their lives. But he's chopping his wife and child, and you're now linking up that one to UNGA, and then you're linking that UNGA to the ODM propaganda, which is built, unfortunately, in this particular case, on sand. Don't build your program, your focus, your political campaign on sand, because the price of commodities goes up and down. It fluctuates. It doesn't matter what leadership is in a position. There's a supply and demand aspect. There's speculation. It is a free enterprise. The government does not control who buys maize where and who stores maize where. So this is a problem, a serious problem that is facing us. The government has taken the necessary action as quickly as possible by ordering supplies to balance the market.
And it came fast enough.
Yes, and the more maize that comes into the market, the likelihood is that prices would also go down. Economics works like that. The same with sugar. Let's look at sugar. Everybody is talking about sugar. The major sugar industries, major sugar production centers are in Western Kenya. They are in ODM strongholds. But in order to protect jobs, in order to protect our citizens, we subsidize. We have put a price control on sugar in this country. We have asked the East African community and COMESA to allow us to continue the process of subsidizing our sugar industry until they were strong enough to be able to compete. And that's why, because we have a controlled system, our sugar prices are much higher in Kenya than it is in the neighboring countries, because there is no subsidy, there's no control, there's no price control. By removing the price control and by removing the subsidies, the consequences for that, for our country, and ODM must be very clear on that, is the closure of those sugar industries. Because they cannot compete with what comes onto the world market. And that is the reality, that we should not play politics with our economics.
So, Mheshimiwa,
economics affects
it's okay. You're saying the government is able to control the sugar market, but it's not able to control
it subsidizes the sugar industry in order to protect our industry.
Would we be in this situation as far as the unga prices are concerned if the government was able to subsidize the maize market?
No, but we can't. I mean, we can't subsidize everything. The cost of subsidizing, in my particular opinion, we should allow our sugar industry to compete globally. And that means that some of our industries would go down. What we have done is that we're investing in industries that have gone down so that we can build our capacity as a country, to build our economic capacity, to be a manufacturing country, to be a producing country, not a consuming country.
Fair enough. Mheshimiwa Jonathan Mweke, your colleague Yusuf Hassan is saying do not build your house on sand. An advice to the opposition not to make this cost of life a campaign issue.
Well, you know, let's do some numbers, because I've heard Mheshimiwa Yusuf say propaganda. Maize is not far. It's here in Kitale. Yeah? At the very high prices now, I think it's the highest it's ever been, is 3,000 shillings a 50 kilogram bag.
A 90 kilogram bag.
90 kilogram. So you divide that, it comes to about 60 or 70 shillings. Right? Add 10 shillings for your transport. Add another 10 shillings kusiaga ikue unga. Add another 10 shillings to package it. And add another 10 shillings as your profit. It comes to about 100 shillings.
And 10 shillings to produce the whole manpower.
Yes, and maybe once it's already been packed, it's already produced. Yeah, it's included in that cost of the 3,000 shillings something per 90 kilograms bag. So if you do that mathematics, your packet of unga should be 100 shillings, top 110 shillings. Why is it 180 shillings? Who is this person who's making the super normal profits? You heard what Mheshimiwa Kalumba said last night. It is people in government doing business. And that's the difference. If you look at now sugar itself, we're not doing too well in producing sugar here because of lack of cane. But if you import sugar up to Mombasa, it comes to about 70, 80 shillings. Cost, insurance, and freight. You transport it, you package it, and everything per kilogram, it should come maximum. Add another 10, 10, 10, plus even 20 shillings for your profit. It should come to 120 shillings. Packed. Yeah, that's 1 kilogram. Times 2, that's 240 shillings. Why is sugar 400 shillings in the supermarket? There's somebody somewhere, and the newspaper said they are faceless people who are making super normal profits. Now let's talk about the shortage. This again, I bring it back to devolution. Yeah? Agriculture is a devolved function. The Ministry of Agriculture is supposed to be doing policy. They're supposed to sit down with the universities, they do research, and they come up with a food security policy for this country, which will now direct the counties to do what they call the law in economics, the law of comparative advantage. You plant what is best to be planted in your county, following the overall policy that the government guides you with, and then you buy from other counties what you don't plant. So now we can go and say in Trans Nzoia will be our maize producing or grain producing county. The policy comes from the Ministry of Agriculture on how many bags should you harvest per acre, what kind of irrigation should you do, what is the soil type, what kind of fertilizer is needed in that soil type. Yeah, make sure that the manpower is there available so that the counties can be able to produce food. What does the Ministry of Agriculture do? It comes into the implementation. They want to go and do irrigation. It's not their function. They want to go and import some fertilizers. It's not their function. They want to go and actually go to the ground and try and do the work of the counties. So they lose their focus on policy. That's why we don't have strategic grain reserves. That's why they didn't see this coming, because they are not focusing on their job. As somebody says, if you don't focus, if you chase 2 rabbits at the same time, you lose both. That's why we are in a problem.
Mheshimiwa Njogu Barua, would the government have handled this differently, considering the manpower and what he says, the early warnings and all the policies in place? Could the government have handled this differently?
I've heard what the governor, deputy governor said. I think he's right in saying that the agriculture is devolved, and there are those functions for the county governments and those functions for the national government. I think it is fair for the stability of this nation now and in the future for the respective levels of government to be doing what they're supposed to do. But then you also have to appreciate that the devolution is very young. It's almost about 3-4 years old, and it's not possible to have achieved that within that short time. I think we're getting there. What I find it difficult is for us to say that there is a problem for maize. Then when maize gets to Mombasa, you see it has come too soon. It's a contradiction. Either that maize was ordered before for another reason, that's a different thing. It's just normal business practice continuing. There are those people who do business of maize, those people who do business of sugar, and they keep on buying and selling all the time. So the fact that the maize is arriving at the dock does not create good room for ODM and other affiliate parties in the opposition to start casting aspersion on anything that is good for this nation. I think what you should do, all of us, is how do you address the issue of hunger in this country? The issue is it does not earn any political mileage to anybody to laugh at somebody who's dying. So what you want to hear is NASA, is ODM, is ANC saying this is the way we should go.
That's what I will be asking Mheshimiwa Kaluma, but I want to hear from you first, or rather from Yusuf. Would the government have handled this differently, considering early warning signals, information from experts, that all came in good time?
I think it's sad that we have this type of hunger here. But as my friend Hassan has said, is that we are facing serious environmental changes globally because of climate change and other issues. Now we are heading to June, and the rains have not been as heavy as expected.
And this was predicted.
And this, okay, it was predicted that by end of April there will be heavy rains. It didn't come. So we are going to face the consequences of that shortage of rain, maybe from August. It is too soon. Last year the same thing happened. So this country and global nations have to start planning for global catastrophes caused by climate change. So what we are saying is that the level of awareness, we should improve the level of predictability. We'll be able to accurately predict the future based on the data we have had for the last 2 years. But for now, based on what happened last year and this year, we could not have done better.
Mheshimiwa Yusuf, your colleague Jogu Barua is thinly answering my question. Would the Jubilee government have done it different, considering that last year they placed 2-point-something billion shillings?
Let me give you an example, having worked at an international level for humanitarian organizations that deal with crisis of refugees and hunger, is that there are times when the international community prepares very well for all contingencies. You stockpile, you prepare and put everything in place, and nothing happens, and everything is destroyed, including tents. You cannot store things indefinitely. You spend huge amounts of money and resources, you tie them in, and then a sudden climatical change affects all of that, and there is hunger, and you have to supply. Even in the case of Ethiopia, when they had the famine, there were parts of Ethiopia that were overproducing food, but because of the poor infrastructure, taking food from point A in the south to point B in the north became impossible. It had to be flown in by air from other countries. So in the same, planning is planning. You can plan for everything, but eventually you cannot plan for the problems of hunger, drought, as we've had, when there's shortage of rain and it continues for an extended period of time. It is very difficult to plan. You cannot store food indefinitely. It gets spoiled, it gets affected in many ways. So even with the best of planning, there are climatical changes, there are disasters, conflicts, for example, in which you have huge number of refugees crossing borders, that you cannot really say that I can plan for 1 million refugees or 500,000 refugees. You can plan only for so much. So therefore this question of whether the government had done its job or not is out of the question at the moment, because as far as we're concerned, the argument here is not whether the government has done its job, but why has it done its job so well that there are supplies coming into Mombasa some few days after we talked about this particular problem.
Okay, I get your point. Yes. From the look of things, you're saying the Jubilee government did what they could have done best. Now I'm looking at a situation where about 45,000 tons of maize has been imported or is being imported into the country at a cost of about 10 billion shillings. A rough preliminary calculation says this is about 5 million bags of 90 kilograms each, and if you divide that by the cost, it's about 20,000 shillings. You said it's 3,000 shillings in Kitale. We are getting maize at 20,000 shillings from wherever, Mexico or wherever. Could the cost of transport be this high? That's a question I want you gentlemen to ponder over as I ask Mheshimiwa Kaluma, what would NASA do in this situation?
ODM.
No. I'm asking the question. What would NASA do in this situation?
You know, Charles, the Deputy Governor has spoken to what any reasonable government would do. Devolve the resources you need to devolve to agriculture and agree that the agricultural function is a county function. And then allow counties based on their potentialities to produce that one which they can maximize for the nation. If you went to Homa Bay County, from where I hail, for instance, we can produce anything from fruits to arable agriculture. What we lack is sufficient facilities and adequate resources to produce enough for our people and to export others to other counties, if I were to use the word export. But the problem we've had is that you are still retaining so much money in the Ministry of Agriculture instead of letting it go, and of course coming up with those policy directions that can galvanize the entire nation out of anger. Njogu Barua is saying this is the best that Jubilee could do. I think we are forgetting that Egypt is exporting millet to us with our own waters from Lake Victoria down here. I mean, when you talk about the policy around food production and food security, you are not just talking about when will hunger come, but you integrate issues of environmental changes, those things they are calling climatic changes and others which are being used as excuses. They'll all be there. Remember, Charles, you were shouting here last time about the need to preserve the environment. How many times have we said...
Actually, I was screaming.
Yeah, you are
shouting is an understatement.
You are wailing. You are
me
crying.
and trees.
I saw sound and tears. That I think is wailing or crying. But remember how much we've been talking about the need for environmental integrity, the need for environmental conservation. And it is a national value and principle of governance when you look at Article 10. I mean, go and look at it there. When you go damming waters in Itare, you're damming waters in Muranga without looking at the overall environmental impact. I mean, how then do you turn around to say we have climatic change issues? Move over Mau across here on a chopper or on a plane, and you'll mourn at how directionless in terms of policy we have become as a nation. People are killing the environment, not considering that Mother Nature of course sustains all these other issues. But if you left the issue of environment, go to Netherlands, go to Switzerland. I mean, what is the land size? How intensely do they use? I mean, fly all over Europe, from Germany across. So we need an integrated, food security policy. And remember, it is security. There is a good reason as to why, we are calling it food security. So we will, as NASA, firm up a devolution. Number two, we will not permit a situation where the leaders of a nation are involved in business. Charles, let us look at the elephant in the room in the eye. Who are trading in milk? Who are trading in sugar? Who are trading in maize? And I think time has come for us not to hear glimpses of who could be, putting the people of Kenya in this situation in the newspapers. We have a national intelligence service who should now be tasked to come and tell us, Charles, who is this who imported this maize we are talking about? Remember when the president was negotiating the sugar deal, sugar milk deal with Uganda? The sugar was already down here, and one of the top leaders was here facilitating it going to Uganda to be packaged to return. And we know all this. I think the time has come for us to realize that when you have cost of living affecting people, it does not discriminate based on tribes and other things. And
how much money has Nairobi County government set aside for agriculture, now that agriculture is a devolved function?
Yeah, we have urban agriculture. Maybe Yusuf, who we've invited for every budget session and he has not attended, looks like he wants to answer it on my behalf.
Okay.
Does it have a Department of Agriculture?
Yes, how much money? Yes, we have a Ministry of Agriculture, and if my memory serves me right, we should have set aside about 300 and something million last year. And what we've been able to do in agriculture is Nairobi is small. We are 30 by 20 kilometers, 696 square kilometers. So what we do is urban agriculture. So we've been able to do in areas like Mathare and in Kibera, which you can all go and see, what we call gunia. Gunia agriculture,
the kitchen garden,
so that people can be able to feed.
So it's not the government, it's not the national government that tells you assign this amount of money to agriculture.
No, that's
You
done.
decide based on your priority.
Correct, based on our priorities.
So then why do you blame the national government? I'll come back to you. Why do you blame the national government if Homa Bay County, which is agriculturally endowed, cannot set aside a big chunk of its allocation to agriculture?
The first problem is that you don't have that money from which you can, allocate a reasonable chunk. Remember, I told you, Charles, that in a budget of 2.6 trillion, remember, the county governments, and their governments properly so-called under the constitution, the 47 of them are sharing 300 billion. 2.3 trillion are still with the national government. So we must begin by saying, let counties have enough money down there. Then number two, you go to where we are talking about, where on matters which are too basic to the country, don't leave it to the discretion of counties to determine how much they are injecting to various lines of agricultural production. You send the money, and then out of that national policy on food security we are talking about, you can say in Homa Bay, you can give general guidelines. In Homa Bay, we want this quantity of production in such lines of, and that will essentially dictate the budget down there.
I want Mheshimiwa Yusuf to tell me, he comes from Nairobi County, they have set aside around 300 million. What's your take? Quickly before we take a commercial
that
break.
is exactly what we are talking about, in the fact that my brother, the deputy governor, has simply said Nairobi does not have the capacity. 300 million, there is no area to grow, maybe unless they do sewage farming. The type of farming that he's thinking of would not feed the 5 million Nairobi population, leave alone the rest of the country. But let me come to this point of here. I see that ODM's propaganda is to demonize Kenyan entrepreneurs. It is saying that milk is done by a particular community that particular leaders we know. Sugar is sold by particular.
Is that fact or fiction?
Whether it is a fact or fiction does not matter. What I am saying is that for a party, an opposition party, to think in those terms is victimizing and demonizing our entrepreneurs. What it should be doing, and what it should be offering this country, and which it does not have, is clear policies on food security, on how it is going to overcome some of the problems that we have. Some of the issues that Mheshimiwa Kaluma is talking about in Mau, these are climatical crises that we have gone over the last 50 years of our independence. Several governments have not dealt with climate and environment the way they should deal with it. And therefore, as an opposition, what the ordinary Kenyan might be looking for is what kind of environmental policies would we have to correct and change this degradation that we have had. Not because it has been done by Jubilee. Raila Odinga was in the last government, and
he lost a big chunk of votes there because of Mao.
But he was part of that government. Therefore, an environmental degradation that has been going for several years. What we want from political.
Did he stand firm on the Mao conservation?
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that this is not a problem that you can square and put it all. Let me finish. I haven't done. So what we need are policies. And a vision and a plan, an agenda that would transform our country to have food security, to have our country to have to correct some of the mistakes that successive governments have done. But there is nothing like that. What we are now looking at, this issue of cost of living, is to demonize particular entrepreneurial people who have invested their money and efforts, and not to deal with the issues of it. And the other thing is that this is going to be a short-term problem. Next week, the price of maize would go down. Next month, the price of sugar would go down. It could also go up. What agenda would this party, ODM party, have to sell to the Kenyan people?
Greed.
Nothing. Absolutely.
I asked that question last week. Gentlemen, we need to take a commercial break. My director is on my case, but it would be unfair to Jogu Barua. You've been quiet. 30 seconds. Explain to me this. After the commercial break, we'll come back to this, Jonathan. Don't worry. Is it wrong
to do
for an opinion shaper to engage in a big chunk of a business like what Mheshimiwa Kaluma is alluding to?
Also on basic commodities.
I think the way things have been going in this country, our leaders, all the way from independence, have been doing participating in business.
Business with the people.
With the people. and also with the government.
So there's nothing wrong.
There could be something wrong. I'm saying this is historical. Is a
Including the governor.
Because
Is it wrong? Big business.
I'm saying that I'm saying even the last government of Musumukate where we had Raila and Kibaki, those guys was doing business. Raila was doing business.
Don't talk.
What is wrong?
Is it right?
No, wait a minute, Karuma. I'm answering.
He's already said it.
I'm saying so.
Right
what I'm saying
or
is
wrong.
What I'm saying is that
It
the
is
fact
not a
that
crime.
it is being done, could be being done now, does not make it worse than it was done in the last government. What I'm saying in short is this. I'm not going to say it's wrong or right, but I should propose and should suppose a situation whereby leaders don't engage in business with the people they're serving.
Fair enough. We take a commercial break, gentlemen. Thank you very much for your contributions. We'll be coming back to this very thorny issue because it's quite pertinent. As we speak about the price of unga and sugar, ERC, Energy Regulatory Commission, announced the rise in the price of petrol and kerosene, and we know what that means. This is a news review segment. I have Mheshimiwa Njogu Barua, Member of Parliament for Gishugu, Mheshimiwa Jonathan Mweke, Deputy Governor Nairobi, Mheshimiwa Peter Kaluma, Member of Parliament for Homa Bay Town, and of course Mheshimiwa Yusuf Hassan, Member of Parliament for Kamukunji. Right back after this.